Okay, I think this is a good time to get started. So, hi everyone, I'm Jen. I'm a part of Kearney's campus recruiting team. I am the campus recruiting coordinator based out of here in New York. I will talk through our webinar logistics really quickly, and then we will hand it off to our speakers to get started with this evening's content. So as you can see here really quickly, any questions will be saved for the end. Any questions that come up throughout the presentation, please send them through our Slido on the right side of the screen. If you see a question come through in particular that you would really like answered, please upvote it so we know to prioritize that question when it comes to the Q&A. Or if you'd like to share questions anonymously, please send them directly to Morgan Daniels. And if you don't have your question answered at the end, please send them to our undergrad inbox, which is kearneycareers.ug@kearney.com. So quickly, again, I want to thank everybody who is joining today for taking the time to sit down and chat with us. And I would like to welcome you all to our first webinar of the season, our Kearney Info session. And at this point, I would like to go ahead and hand it off to our first speaker, Dominique.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. And good evening, everyone. So good to have you on the line today. My name is Dominique Harris, as Jen mentioned, and we're going to kick off with a few introductions. And so this page here, I'm just highlighting a bit of a collage of pictures of myself and my colleagues or important events in my life over the last couple years. For those who haven't maybe seen my profile around LinkedIn, I've been with the firm for over 15 years, and I actually started as a BA intern. And so now I am a partner in our strategy growth organization transformation practice. That's a mouthful, but I mostly do things around organization design, particularly around structure, governance, change management, etc. But I came from a non-traditional background. I was planning to be a teacher and really was able to get my feet wet in consulting and work across industries, which my colleagues will speak about in just a bit, and loved it, and I've stayed with it. And so this collage here shows a bit of my really important people in my life and who have also, I would say, some of the things in terms of my journey. So on the far upper left would be my 10-year reunion at Kellogg. So I was also a scholar with Kearney. I went to Kellogg full-time to receive my MBA, and then I came back to the firm. In the middle on the top row is me and one of my mentees, Karina Toy, who does a lot in sustainability, but also is part of our Pearl offering, product excellence offering. And then as we finish out the top row is with me and a number of my colleagues in one of my favorite places, Hawaii. And one of the favorite stories I like to tell, and I won't go into too much detail, is that as a BA, I really never took a vacation. I didn't really know how to take a vacation. I didn't really grow up with a lot of vacations, and my colleagues were just amazed by that. And my managers were like, you cannot work any longer and not take a vacation. So they held me to it. They project managed me until I took my first vacation. And that first vacation was to Hawaii. So Hawaii is one of my favorite places ever. The last thing I'll just highlight from this page, which is my fun fact and leads us to the next page, I took my first helicopter ride in Hawaii over the island of Kauai last September. And so I had a lot of fun doing that with a few of my other partner colleagues. So why don't we go ahead to the next page where we get into a few more introductions, and you'll hear from some of my colleagues on the line and their fun facts. Ryan, do you want to kick us off?
Thanks, Dominique. Nice to see everyone out there. Thanks for joining. My name is Ryan Cody. I'm an associate out of the Chicago office as well. I'm in our strategic operations practice, which focuses primarily on operations and supply chain problems. And I've been with the firm just a little bit over 2 years now. So excited to talk to you all today, and excited to answer your questions. I'll pass it over to Ashwin.
Hi guys, I'm Ashwin. I'm a senior business analyst at the New York office, and I'm currently aligned to SGNOT as part of the PDP program, which we'll hear more about down the line. Super excited to have you guys here today and to learn more about what we have to offer.
And Sophie.
I'll round us off here. I'm Sophie, a senior business analyst in the Toronto office, and I'm aligned to our energy and process industries practice, working mostly in the chemicals and utilities space. And I'll hand the baton back to Dominique.
Excellent. So let's go ahead and get into a bit more about Kearney. So Kearney, probably from some of your desktop research, you understand that we are a global management consulting firm. We are in the top 10, have over 2 billion in revenue. We have offices in over 40 countries globally, which is really exciting. And this map is showing a bit of that. Our clients, 2/3 of our clients, at least 2/3, are with the Fortune 500. I would say 80% of our clients are repeat clients, which is really, really nice and exciting, and really goes to the testament of building relationships. We have almost 6,000 consultants worldwide. So we've been growing very rapidly. I feel like when I joined 15 years ago, it was maybe around 3,000. So it's pretty cool to see how much we've been growing and how we're doubling, et cetera. And we have over 25,000 alumni, and our alumni are just are very important, I would say, to us and how we continue to grow our business. So let's get a bit more into who we are. If we go to the next page, we get more into how we kind of talk about Kearney and describe our culture at Kearney. And so, as I mentioned, we're a global management consulting firm, but I must highlight, we are one of the original. We're almost 100 years into our history. And with that, we haven't really forgotten what's core to our business, which is our people. Our people are Kearney originals, as we like to call it. And our Kearney originals really help drive everything we do for our clients, the culture at our firm, activities, things like that. Really helping to foster an environment where you as an individual can fully contribute and thrive to your fullest potential. That's really our goal here at Kearney, in addition to serving our clients. So we have a global footprint, but with us being almost about 6,000 consultants, if you look at other firms, you'll see they have a few thousand more. So though we have this global footprint, we're pretty nimble enough to be entrepreneurial. We have close relationships and partnerships across regions, and able to really fortify that further with our clients. Probably any one of us on this line can tell you about an instance where we had to email a team somewhere in Europe or in Asia, and we were able to get a response within 24 hours whenever they wake up, right? Like, it's very cool how we really work across borders pretty seamlessly. There's a bit more facts here in terms of us being real, relatable, refreshing. That all sounds good, I know, but it's actually true. So one is we really try to mix empathy with how we lead in our expertise, really connecting with the client. And one of my favorite quotes actually goes back to our founder, Tom Kearney, essential rightness. And that's, I think, something core to our values and how we make sure that we are being real with our clients, even if it's a recommendation that may be hard to hear. We also are very direct, right? We try to speak plainly as much as possible. So that's getting to the relatable, really trying to make sure that it's not always consultant speak. Now, there is some of that, and you might hear a little bit of that jargon on the line today, but we really make sure that we try to connect with our clients, whatever the industry or function. And then refreshing in the sense that our perspectives, making sure our perspectives are leading edge, not keeping up with the trends, but also making sure we're keeping it grounded in the operations and reality of really making it happen. And the last thing I'll speak to here is around apprenticeship, which I would say for myself, coming up as a BA was enormously important to my success. Being able to come up through an apprenticeship model, which what does that mean? It really means having the formal and informal mentorship throughout my career from project managers and other, I would say, leaders, practice leaders, office leaders, diversity network leaders, all of them pouring into really helping to coach me at different phases in my career was really critical to my success of moving up the ranks. And I'm sure others on the line could tell a story like that. The other thing I'll say about apprenticeship is that, especially as an analyst, you are not necessarily just put into a corner and doing research all day. Yes, you'll probably do some research. I'll be real with that, but you won't be in a corner. I know some of my best experiences as an analyst is that I was right there in the client meeting, whether the client is another junior team member, or a client could be as senior as an SVP going up to a CEO eventually, right? And so you are in the room, you are at the table, and that's true apprenticeship. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavor of Kearney and our culture. And of course, we're definitely happy to answer more questions as it relates to this. But let me hand it over to my colleague, Ryan, who will talk a bit more about our ins and outs of industry and services.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dominique. So when you look at Kearney, the way we structure our practices is around two different areas. When you come in as a junior, there's lots of flexibility in your project experience, but usually it aligns to either an industry type or a service offering. I myself came in to SOP directly because I have an industrial engineering background and I was interested in those types of projects. But there's many folks that will come in as a full generalist and with the ability to work across different industries and services across their first years of the firm. Even though I'm in strategic operations, I've actually had the experiences to work across lots of different industries during my time here, which goes all the way from aerospace and defense to actually pretty cool project last fall where I was on a wine merger between two large wine companies, so very out of the box, all the way down to good meat and potatoes industrial clients in the Midwest. So it's been super interesting for me to work across industry types on my short time here, and I think it's allowed me to really flex my skills with different client types, different experiences. It's been super impactful. I think as I think about moving up in the firm, I've started to kind of zero in on an industry type that aligns well with the service offering that I do in my operations practice. And I think the aerospace and defense industry is actually really interesting to me. So it's been cool to get a lot of experience on that, recently. But diving into a little bit more of the structure of how you come in as a junior, depending on if you come in as an intern or full time, there's a lot of opportunity to experience different practices. And we actually have a formal practice discovery program, which allows a BA to essentially bounce around to different practices across a few different months. So they have more of an effort around specific practices, and the practices will know that they're available. So I have a couple colleagues that I know that have bounced around to different types of projects months to months, and they found that really impactful before they finally found their home as they moved up the ranks. So that's been super cool. I know that Sophie and might have had a little bit more experience, so I'll pass it over to a couple of those two to give a little bit more experience on their work across different practices.
Yeah, I experienced the program that Ryan is talking about, and it really gave me insight into a practice that when I joined Kearney, I didn't know what energy and process industries really did. I had an environmental studies background, and it was very cool to see the intersections between my work at university and some of the work that Kearney drives in the environmental space within utilities, for example, growing our renewables practice. So that was super cool, and I liked my time so much in this practice that I decided to formally align to it. And now I get to work with the wonderful people of EPI on a daily basis. Whether Ashwin wants to add any color or back to you.
Yeah, happy to add some color there too. I'm still in the PDP program, and I think that adds a little bit different lens where I've been able to go through 3 practices now: TNT, ATI, which is now MDI, and now SGNOT. And I know at a high level for a lot of the attendees in this, that will mean a lot in terms of acronyms, but basically by going through these different practices, there's been an amazing opportunity as somebody who came in as a generalist and didn't have a specific clear lens of knowing what I wanted to work in, to be able to work across different topic areas and also across a lot of different partners who I wouldn't normally have exposure to in the first place. So loving the program right now. And I think something that's really unique to Kearney is it allows you to embed yourself within this practice, really feel like you're part of this family while not being particularly tied down to this practice, and yourself that ability to keep moving around. So it's a program I've really grown to appreciate.
All right, we can hop into this slide here. These are our core values at Kearney. We've got these 5 core tenets I like to think about as we think about what's really the culture that supports, the values that we each have. So I think we're going to go through, and each of us are going to provide an example of one of these values in action. because I really think about my time here as embodying these types of values, which has been super cool. So I'm going to start with boldness. This was back in my very early BA days. I was in the first 6 months at the firm, and I was turning around essentially a proposal document. And I was actually at the client side because we were working it closely with the C-suite at the client. And the CFO wanted, right before lunch, she wanted a bit of an update on what we were thinking about the proposal. And I remember she walked into our conference room, and it was sort of my back was against the wall, and it was sort of a fight or flight response. And I remember just having that sort of that boldness where I actually I jumped up and I showed her the document on the wall, and I walked her through some of the numbers actually, which was pretty cool. I was 6 months before, I was essentially in a college class, wrapping up my degree, and then 6 months later I was actually presenting my findings directly to a CFO for a proposal, which is super cool. So that's my experience with boldness, but I'd be happy to pass it to Sophie, Dominique, or Ashwin about some of their experiences with one of these values.
Yeah, I'll speak to the value of solidarity, which I think is really, really strong at Kearney. We have a great sense of collaboration, and I feel this on a daily basis with my project team. So about literally an hour ago, we had our weekly check-in to see how everyone's doing, whether any of us see obstacles on the horizon that will prevent us from doing our work, and then really how can we work together as a team to support each other, potentially resolve any obstacles, and make sure that we're all kind of plugging in and being as supportive as possible. And it's really great to feel that kind of network and cushion of support from the people you're working with every single day. But it's not only within Kearney that I think this value is present, it's also our collaboration with our clients that I think is really, really powerful. And it's great to be able to have deep teamwork in order to provide exciting results. So I can highlight some recent working sessions with my current client where we as Kearney, we brought forward a set of detailed ideas to help improve their gross margin, typical consulting. And then we sat side by side with our client counterparts, discussed each idea in detail, bringing, our fresh kind of outside in perspective and all of our analysis. And then we coupled that with the client's detailed knowledge of the market, of their customers, for example. And then together we discovered some really exciting opportunities. So it wasn't just kind of us doing our own thing and bringing it to a client. It was truly teamwork and working together, which we see across the board. And I think it's one of my favorite parts of working here.
Thanks, Sophie. Happy to jump in for another value of generosity here too. And it's something that as a value is really critical to Kearney teams. This isn't just about getting the work done, logging off and calling it a day. There really is a sense on every team that your manager, your principal, cares about you individually beyond just the work that you're doing. And I think there is an effort to engage with people to ensure that they're not only just getting the work done, but they're learning what they want to learn, that they're progressing in the way they need to progress at Kearney in the first place. And I think this spirit of genuinely wanting to engage with the team is what makes the difference between not wanting to be around the people you're working with and being really happy with the kind of value that you're adding and the people that you're working with in the first place. So it's a value that runs deep here at Kearney.
And I'll walk us through some of our, commitments to driving positive impact across the board. We have ESG-oriented groups and goals integrated into our work. So, for example, in energy and process industries, we have a sustainability pillar, and the work we do includes examining Scope 3 emissions for chemicals companies, some POV on human rights, and as I mentioned earlier in this call, work in renewables. So we do a lot of work within each practice and certainly have a lot of internal goals to reach when it comes to our project work. But as a firm, we also have our own ESG goals. For example, we have a target of achieving net zero client impact by 2030. And you'll find a lot of enthusiastic folks who are all very interested in pushing forward ESG work and social impact work, which I'll speak a little about now. We engage in a really wide variety of initiatives over the course of the year, which range from externships, where you can spend several months working for an NGO. I just had a colleague come back for some work from some work in NGO, and it was incredible to hear her experiences and how she applied everything she'd learned as an associate at Kearney to this externship. But also we have a lot of office-based projects. We can get involved on a smaller scale, maybe 1 hour a week instead of several months of the year. So in the Toronto office, we have a partnership with a nonprofit called Propel, and they provide students and young professionals with consulting experience in the ESG space. So mentors from the office support and coach a variety of projects, whether they are related to climate action or healthcare. We're super excited because we're just starting our third cycle of projects. And across different offices in the Americas, you'll find some really, really similar initiatives that you can get involved with in your home office. I think we can go to, yes, a typical week in the life of a BA, which, as this kind of timetable shows you, you'll be splitting your time between driving your analysis and drawing out kind of key insights from there to present both to your team internally, and then ensuring that your client is on board with your work and whether you should push the needle further in any directions. Again, we do have a lot of emphasis on deep collaboration and face time, and that might mean that you'll be traveling to your client site or to co-locate with your team in one of our offices. And I know for me, Kearney has taken me to various US cities, and next week I'm traveling to Zurich for a client workshop. So that's a super exciting opportunity as a junior. And then often, after your week of travel, you will find quite a few of us in our home offices on Friday, and there's usually a bunch of social events. So in the Toronto office, we've been ice skating to cooking workshops and even just having happy hour drinks in the office when we finish up.
Happy to jump in for this page. So this page is just giving you a general overview of what the career path looks like here at Kearney when it comes to general consulting. And I think for most of the people on this call, you're going to be coming in at a business analyst level or as an intern for a business analyst. So the real focus on this is ensuring that you're trying to develop the analytical skills you need to become a successful consultant in the long term. And I think the expectation of Kearney isn't that you come in with a set of fully developed skills. You come in already like a fully fledged consultant, ready to do anything and everything. It's more that you have a openness to learning and you have the capability to really think creatively and be able to engage with both your team and the client to ensure you're on the right path to being a really functional and successful consultant. So as you can tell, this analytical skill is the base of knowledge you need in consulting. And then as you continue to develop long term, you start to get into more of a project management, people management, and eventually to business development. But I think the point to really emphasize here is that Kearney wants to ensure that at the business analyst level, you really develop that important base of skills, and an openness to learning is critical in order to be successful. And for this page, it's a high-level overview of what the recruiting process looks like. It is relatively straightforward. In the first round, it's going to be virtual with one behavioral interview and one case interview. Each of these are going to be 45 minutes long. Behavioral interview will contain more engaging questions, really trying to understand your resume, your background, your experience, while the case interview will be a traditional consulting case interview. The second round will be a similar set of interviews, except with an additional case interview. So one behavioral interview and two case interviews, 45 minutes each for all of these. I think at a personal level, within approaching these interviews in the first place, what I found really helpful for me was one, trying to really practice the case interview with any resources that you have at your university, with any friends that you have, or other people applying. Practicing case interviews was super helpful for me. It's always helpful too if you can get somebody on the line at Kearney to do a practice case interview. That's a great experience to get ready for this. For the behavioral interview, it's ensuring that you really understand what experiences you have in your resume and the story you're trying to tell for why you should be able to fit and be successful at this position. I think that's more for me though. In general, I don't think these interviews are anything completely out of the ballpark, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just do the preparations that you know is already fit for this process.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashwin, so much for walking through our recruiting process. Before we move on to the Q&A, I do want to cover briefly our application and the application timeline. So our full-time BA business analyst role and our summer business analyst intern role for 2025 are posted to either your school's Handshake account or your career website. Our full-time business analyst application closes Wednesday, September 11th, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. CT. Interviews tend to happen pretty quickly after the resume drop. So our interviews for our full-time BA position will be wrapped up by the end of September. Our summer business analyst intern position is open and the application expires Sunday, September 22nd, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. CT. We will have our first round interviews at the last week of September, and then our final round interviews will either be the following week or the week after. So with that, I would like to hand it back over to Dominique just to get this Q&A started.
Thanks, Jen. And maybe we can keep it on you, keep it on you for a second in terms of, did you also mention in terms of when you apply, can you apply directly to a service or a generalist? Can you address that one more time?
Yeah, I can cover that really quickly. Thank you. So as you're going through our application, you'll be able to list a preference of which practice you are interested in applying for. So let's say you're wanting to apply for a strategic operations practice. You would rank that as your first choice, and then you can rank like different practices as your second and third choices, but you'll mainly be considered for the first choice that you list. For our full-time and our summer business analyst intern position, you can apply as a generalist, and then you'll hear back from the recruiter which interview process you'll be coming through. So whether you'll be coming through interviewing as a generalist for Kearney or practice service aligned.
Okay. And just to be clear, just stay on you one more time. Just to be clear, when will people find out if they are selected for an interview? What timeline did you say for that?
It should be around a week after or 2 weeks after. I believe our full-time business analyst interviews start September 18th, so you'll hear between the 11th and the 18th if you're invited to interview for the full-time BA position. For our internship, the application closes September 22nd, and the interviews, I believe, start September 30th. So you'll hear again within that week whether you're invited to interview or not.
So typically people get like probably at least 5 days, if about 5 days notice that they'll be asked to interview. Okay, so questions are coming in hot. Thank you, Jen. I'll take you off the hot seat. Maybe now I'll go to Ashwin. If you can speak to the question about agency. So a bit of how much agency do you actually have in selecting industries or services when coming in as a BA or intern? And what does the timeline look like? I think in terms of what does the timeline look like, that might actually go to what we just talked about. So maybe just talk about selecting the industry or service. How much agency do you have, Ashwin?
Yeah. I think as an intern, when you're coming in, you fill out a survey that basically says what content area you're interested in, whether it be a type of project, a practice, or a specific industry. And then that way you're able to get assigned to something that ideally lines up closely with content that you're interested in. So as an intern, you definitely have an ability to really voice what you're looking for, and then ideally you end up paired with a project that you're interested in. At a junior level, if you're applying as a full-time BA, Jen, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here because I'm not sure how it works now. But in my experience, I was able to essentially come in as a generalist, and eventually I joined the PDP program, and I've had the flexibility to be able to go through multiple rotations, and now it's only at the end of my third rotation that I have to decide on alignment with a specific practice. So it's been something where there hasn't been a lot of pressure on aligning practices. It's more like there's an excitement and an incentive from the practice to pull you in because everybody wants you to be part of their team. It isn't really like you need to do this. It's more practices want you to be part of their team. So they're trying to sell you on it as well. But Jen, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here on what the full-time application will look like and whether you need to apply it to a specific practice.
Well, maybe I'll just jump in really quickly because I think Jen has spoke to, I think it'll be clear when you apply if you're applying to a service line or industry or the generous role, that will be clear in the application. And to
Yes.
answer the question a bit more fully, as an intern, you will be given, if you're accepted into the internship, you'll have an opportunity to like rank the service practices or industries you're most interested in. And then we have a staffing team that does a bit of magic, and I just kidding. They actually try to triangulate what you want to do with what's in the pipeline and what your kind of capabilities are, even as a junior, and figure out where to match you. So usually you get your top 3, I would say there. Now, from a full-time perspective, if you apply to, say, our strategic operations practice, like Ryan, and you come into that practice, then as you work in that practice, you would have an opportunity to work across industries. And so to answer the question in that sense, your agency to be able to work across industries comes in 2 ways, I would say. One, your people experience person, and that is your person within HR who helps to understand what type of experience you're trying to get and really helps with staffing and making sure to triangulate your interests with what's in the pipeline as much as possible. And I would say your interests as well as your professional development needs. The other way is through networking. Like I said at the beginning, this is a people business, and you could definitely network and connect with people in various industries or service practices that you're interested in and start to get pulled that way, even as an analyst. So we have a ton of questions. I want to keep us moving along. I think I have the next one pinned for Sophie in terms of how much influence does an analyst have with the projects they are put on? So maybe, Sophie, you can expand upon a little bit of what I was saying.
Yeah, I was going to say, I really, those points I think are really applicable to not only your service and your practice that you join, but also the projects that you get put on. So I think it's a combination of like what your interests are that you've communicated to the people experience team, the internal network that you build. So when you come into Kearney day one, there are a bunch of different people doing exciting things. And it's a great opportunity to reach out and have coffee chats with partners, principals, managers, even associates and juniors and your peers who are working in the fields that you're really excited about. And that will give you a really good footing from day one to get a feel of what's happening, who you can kind of plug in to the work with and what you can get involved with. And typically those folks will pull you into, let's say, their business development, where you'll be working on proposals for projects before eventually being pulled into a project that you've kind of set your sights on because you've been so involved in preparing that proposal. And it's a really great way to just continue to meet people and maybe even find a field of interest that you didn't know about. And then there's also kind of third aspect of business needs at the time. There might just be a time during the course of the year where you're pulled onto a project that may not be aligned with what you come into the firm with your interests as, but I've kept a really open mind about that, and it's really exciting what you might learn across the way. So a blend of different elements there, but you have, I think, quite a lot of control over it based on how you build your network.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sophie. And I'm gonna triple click on that in the sense that there was a question around, given my experience and progression through the firm, what are some of the things I did as a BA to set myself up to become a partner? Now, I will note, as a BA, I didn't know that I would become a partner, and I hadn't seen that far ahead. But I will say, to set me up to be a great consultant, which is still at my core as a partner, one is networking. If this core business is around people internally and with clients, to set myself up, I really worked on my ability to network and build relationships. How do I connect with people? How do I genuinely connect with people and still be myself? And how do I show up fully as myself, when at times I might feel either uncomfortable or challenged or in new settings, right? And so I really try to stretch myself in those areas, and then also really try to learn myself in my strengths of being able to present or to facilitate, to communicate, things like that, right? To project manage, really understanding my strengths, and then where I had opportunities to grow, being willing to learn and take new opportunities to strengthen those areas. That's what I would say generally. That's what I did as a BA. And it could go into much more detail around the technical aspects of it. But let me ping over to Ryan, because a bit of what I did back in the day has shifted because AI is here, right? It's been here for a while, but it's really here now. So, Ryan, how has AI kind of come into your day to day? How do you feel like we're using it at the firm?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've interacted with AI in two different ways. I would say there's how does AI, alleviate my more the mundane tasks I do maybe, and streamline some of my day. Then there's also how do I engage my client over AI. So in terms of my day-to-day tasks, I think I've stopped writing a first draft of an email. I think I've let you know Chat GPT or Copilot that we now have ingrained in our laptops, thankfully, take a first pass at an email. Also, I proofreads everything because it might not just be picking up on spell check, but it's also how is my voice, how's my tone in this email? I want this to sound more executive, giving me some ideas about that. So I think it's allowing me to be a little bit more flexible and quicker on my feet in terms of turning around those types of communications. Also, in terms of desktop research, sometimes one of the things we do a lot of the times are find new suppliers for our clients, whether that's across directs or indirects. And that can be a pretty laborious process in terms of aggregating supplier information, different contact points, initial reach out to the suppliers actually. And some of the AI chat services have a great way to sort of coach them up on how to actually be a supply chain consultant. So you can get them moving their feet on finding what suppliers might work for your situation, and actually creating a spreadsheet of, okay, here are the 50 best suppliers at this certain thing. And by the way, we found their emails, we found their phone numbers. Now it's just about they can aggregate revenue and some of the other key details, and they really take some of that legwork out of it, which is super awesome. Then the last piece I'll say is our clients are always talking about, how should they be weaving AI into their business? And specifically right now, we've got our client that's thinking about, they have one of their planning software suppliers has approached them with a new AI module. And we've actually taken that into consideration. And they've asked us what's the business case around this? Because there's a certain cost around that. And they want to understand what the scale of the impact of that would be. So we've actually built a business case for our client right now and worked through essentially trying to scale what or size what the opportunity would be if they were to implement this. So we've, they've won us on the cutting edge of understanding those issues. So it's been interesting to get up to speed quickly on that topic and really, be the right answer for our clients. So those are the different ways I've interacted with AI, which has been pretty cool.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Ryan. It's pretty exciting that everything with AI and Copilot. I agree. You shouldn't start from scratch almost with anything. If you don't know where to start, you leverage AI and build on it, but you can't trust it holistically. You have to build on it and check it. That's a few of the things that we're learning. Okay, so coming to our last 5 minutes of the call. And so we have a couple more questions we'll go over. There's a question around what is the difference between an industry and a service practice? So as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm part of the strategy growth and organization and transformation practice. That is considered a service practice because it aligns to various functions within an organization, regardless of industry. So a service practice is more connected to functions in companies and agnostic of industry. And so that means I could work with automotive clients, I could work with retail clients, I can work with energy clients, right? Now, if you're part of the industry practice, that's on a different side or a different axis of the matrix, I guess you can say. And so maybe Sophie, you can talk about that.
Yeah, so I'm on kind of the opposite axis to Dominique in that I'm in an industry practice and my work is not necessarily functional based, but it's industry based. So within EPI, for example, we have 4 different industry areas: chemicals, oil and gas, utilities, and metals and mining. So you'll find me working in one of those 4 industries, potentially doing a bunch of those different kind of service level projects and working with folks like Dominique, and Ryan in strategic operations, who are kind of across these various different industries.
Mm-hmm. And I would say it could get a little confusing at times because when you work on a project, you're typically going to be collaborating across the board. I can easily work on a project that is focused on organization design for supply chain within an energy company, right? And then that's going to combine me, Ryan, and Sophie. So it's something that you'll pick up over time, but generally I would say functions are services and the industries are the other axis. So we have a few minutes left and we've gotten a couple of questions about the traits that we look for or that we see in, I would say, analysts or interns that thrive or that are successful at the firm. I will give a couple of my thoughts, and then because I know we just have a few minutes left, I will do like a rapid round robin with the three analysts here on the line, or associates and analysts, to maybe say their one tip in terms of what does it take to kind of be successful or thrive, kind of stick out as an analyst. So I always take it back to the basics. So one is what's within your control. Within your control is how you manage your time, how you communicate upwards, your ability to get work done that you say you're going to get done. That all falls within project management. Your ability to communicate, your ability to speak to the work that you have developed, the analysis you've completed, your ability to formulate that into a page that can be communicated either to the client or internally, that's under the communication. And I think those are very much within your control, your ability to manage your time and to communicate your work. And that's where I've seen when I talk about interns, especially as a BA intern being so much more junior, you're very new to this, is really about how can you manage your time, can you communicate, and are you eager to learn? And so that's something else that I really look for in our analysts, eagerness to learn, to kind of go up the steep learning curve, being open to new things, and adapting to the environment that they're in. Ryan, Sophie, Ashwin, anything that you would add in terms of traits of successful analysts, intern or full-time?
Yeah, I would say what's always jumped out to me is I think everyone at Kearney has this like innate curiosity, like intellectual curiosity, right? Where they're, whether it's a client problem or, in some downtime we're playing Wordle on on the screen in between a meeting or something. Like it's the people that are inherently curious and they love to solve problems regardless of what it is that I've always felt that like special fabric between every Kearney consultant. So if random problems, excite you and all that sort of stuff, I think you're in the right profession. I think you'll fit in well here.
Sophie?
I think Ryan's actually taken the words right out of my mouth, because the biggest thing that came to my mind was curiosity when I think about like the colleagues who I look up to, and I think what's helped me succeed so far as an analyst has just been being open to learning, being curious about a problem and about an industry too, if that's kind of the project that you're working on. And I just think it makes everything in front of you very, very exciting.
Absolutely. Ashwin, anything that you would add there?
I think this kind of goes hand in hand with curiosity, but being proactive and a bit of a go-getter, where you aren't just trying to check off a box of what's assigned to you, rather you're trying to find new things that maybe your manager or the associate hasn't noticed, and really trying to drive value yourself without having to have homework assigned to you. That's what makes a really good BA in my mind.
Absolutely. Awesome. Great ads, team. Now, I know we didn't get to all the questions, but we were flashing up our names, et cetera. You could reach out to us, I think, via LinkedIn, et cetera, and kind of ask more questions. I know we didn't get to the one about the offices, which we could all debate, which is the best office, Chicago. But I would just say you can learn more. All the offices are great and kind of lean to our culture. Thank you for joining us and hoping to see you apply. Jen, anything else?
No, I think we're all good. We also dropped our undergrad inbox in the chat as well if you'd like to grab that to send further questions. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Thank you again to our panelists and Dominique so much for moderating this evening. And I hope you all apply. Have a great evening.
Thanks,
Thanks, team.
everybody.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everybody.